This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Mike Irwin from Pig Trail Nation joining us here on Halftime, and it's always good to talk with Mike, especially after an Arkansas win. Well, even after a loss, we like to get his opinion on everything. Mike, how you doing? How's Monday going?
So good so far. How about you guys?
Well, we'll do everything we can to ruin the start of your Monday then, just in case, since it's going so well. Great game Saturday. Hogs looked really good against Ole Miss. Some people are complaining that they didn't play very well in the fourth quarter or, played 2.5 good quarters or something. That's all I need to know. Up 42-6, it's game, set, match. I thought it was a lovely sight.
Yeah, isn't it really interesting to go from really a short period of time to the coaches are dummies, don't know what they're doing, to now all of a sudden the problem is they shouldn't have shut it off because it should have been more like Shane Beamer and score 60 on Ole Miss instead of 42. And it was pretty obvious what was going on. First of all, those are two totally different games. Early in the third quarter of that Ole Miss Tennessee or that South Carolina Tennessee game, it was a 3-point game, 4 points or whatever. So you're still going to try to score if you can. If you're Beamer, you don't want to give those guys any chance of coming back. Pittman looks at that score, was it 3 or 4 minutes in, and especially after Arkansas had scored, Ole Miss comes back down the field, fumbles at midfield. Okay, you look at the clock, there is not enough time for them to come back unless you turn the ball over on your end of the field. So he goes into a safe mode. I mean, they just don't want turnovers. And it's interesting, Alyssa Orange pointed this out to me when it was over. Even though Arkansas got outscored 21-0 in the fourth quarter, and even though they had a bunch of 3-and-outs, they burned up 8.5 minutes of clock time in the fourth quarter and left Ole Miss with 6.5 minutes to try to come back. And there just wasn't enough time, and that's all he cared about. He said it after the game. We just have more than they do. But now the fans are mad because they didn't blow them out.
Yeah, the defense was fun to watch. They kind of set the tone, I know, and then again they give up 700 yards, but they just kind of it doesn't matter. They never looked like they were out of sync. What were your thoughts on how the defense started off that first half?
Yeah, it was just really good. I mean, it's just interesting to watch what's happening now that you've got the secondary corrected, now that you don't have to worry about them just giving up these wide-open touchdowns. You can focus more. You don't have to drop 8 into coverage. You can focus on more attacking the quarterback, stopping the run. And I will say this, Ole Miss moved the ball even early, but when it really mattered, when they got in the red zone, Arkansas made some plays. Now, look, Ole Miss shot themselves in the foot sometimes too, but that wasn't the total story of the defense. The difference between these guys now and a month ago is just it's really hard to kind of wrap your head around. But when you understand football and you realize that when you had all those injuries in the secondary and Odom was it was like putting a Band-Aid on the problem. He's dropping 8 back into coverage, which leaves you with no pass rush and leaves you, susceptible to the run. But he just reasoned, hey, we've been getting beat deep worse. That's a bigger problem, so I'll solve that first and then try to figure out the rest. And then it's just amazing how much better you play when you get players back. I mean, what a difference KJ made. I mean, that first touchdown drive, Rocket goes like 2 yards, 1 yard or whatever, and then suddenly KJ throws about an 18-yard pass, and then he reels off a 30-yard run, and all of a sudden, now that you can do a lot of things besides run the ball and give it to Rocket, Rocket comes back on the next possession and goes off. It's just all about forcing the defense to respect different options as opposed to letting them just load up to stop one thing.
I focused a little more on getting KJ back in the last segment and what that does to open the offense up. We'd had a commenter on YouTube say we'd forgotten to mention Dalton Wagner, which is a pretty big portion of that as well. Did you notice anything specific on the right sid? Getting Wagner back, and how did that help out against Ole Miss specifically?
I didn't. It wasn't anything earth-shattering. Again, what I noticed was that I think Ole Miss started that game, we're going to load up to stop the run because it's what the previous two teams had done. But once you showed them what will happen if you do that, then all of a sudden they have to respect it. Again, I give these examples that are silly, but when I 55 whatever years in high school football, I still remember we had a head coach that wasn't a good play caller, and he'd send in plays from the sidelines, and when the wide receiver would come in and announce the play in a low voice to the quarterback, but we're all there, we can hear it. You could hear the lineman going, "Oh crap! Oh, not that play." Linemen know when a defense is going to line up and just, I mean, they're stacking to stop you, and there's no way to block that. And so, again, it's all about forcing the other team's defense to cover more of the field. And when you do that, it's amazing how much things open up and how much easier it is to block.
Mike, it seemed like Drew Sanders and Chris Paul Jr. were everywhere kind of making some of the plays when they had to be made. Anybody else on that defense stand out to you making plays like that?
Well, yeah, Quincy, he's impressive. But, we do this thing on our game day show where we all pick the player of the game. And I picked Pooh Paul because he's just been coming on.
Man,
and
he had yeah.
Oh, I mean, this guy is aggressive. Whatever problems Arkansas was having earlier in the year where you had all these missed tackles where guys were overcommitting, he just doesn't do that.
Right.
He's like a radar or something. He just goes right after the guy, and it's hard to fake him out, and he makes some really impressive tackles. I mean, he's banging into those running backs and quarterbacks, and you got him back. He's back next year. So it makes you feel a lot better knowing he's back there. But he may be the single most improved player from the beginning of the season to now.
Yeah, him and McAdoo both being out there, you're right. But it seems like each week he's making big plays when we have to make big plays.
Yeah, you like to see him out there, and he's a nice guy. And he's waited for his time to play. He's playing behind some good guys last year and even this year. But to their credit, they started bringing him in on third down situations and bringing Bumper out, which I think they initially did that because Bumper was injured. You sort of want to give him a little more time to rest and have him out there fewer reps, and then it just really paid off. This is what players don't do a lot of times, but it's everything about it's what you do when you get your shot. We all know guys sit there and they want to play and they don't get what happens when they finally give you that shot? You got to do something with it, and he really has.
Mike, the Razorback offense has gained 5,120 yards. It's almost an even 50-50 split between rushing and passing. It's amazing. 16 yardage of difference between rushing and passing. Obviously they have attempted many more rushes than passes, 215 more runs than passes to be exact. But, I mean, this is about as balanced of a yardage, split between passing and rushing that I've ever seen before, 11 games in.
Yeah, and they're on track to end up somewhere around 6,000 yards. It depends on what happens in these last two games. But if they do that, I think I read where it will be the third highest total offense total for a Razorback team anytime, any place, under any coach. So if you do that, does that mean Kendall Briles still needs to be run off? Does he not know what to do? It's amazing when you look at some of these numbers, and they kind of surprise you. I would not have thought before I saw that statistic that they were in that position to become number 3 all time in terms of total offense for a Razorback team.
Yeah, I mean, I like all the coaches up there. Do you think there's a sense of like relief now that they got this 6 win? They kind of the monkeys off their back. They kind of can have a little relief around there.
Yeah, I think it changes everything. Fans sometimes say, "Well, I mean, come on, what does it really mean just to be bowl eligible?" I mean,
that was a big win.
Lot to do. Yeah, it has a lot to do with recruiting. It has a lot to do with developing your younger players in those bowl practices, and what you can do now is play a little looser, try to win this game, and then win the bowl game, and then that really makes a difference. So, yeah, bowl eligible is a big thing. I know there's a lot of focus on the playoffs these days, and everybody wants to make it, and it will be even bigger when they expand it to 12 teams, but that doesn't mean these bowl games don't matter, because they do. You've been on bowl trips, I mean, you ask any player, do you want to go to a bowl or not go to a bowl? What are they going to say? No, I don't want to go, and let's just get the season over with. People don't say that. You don't play football not to play a game, an extra game.
So where do you think they're going? I've heard some thoughts that they might want the earliest bowl game possible, which would be the Vegas Bowl. And I've seen some projections that some people think they'll get sent there to play a Pac-12 team. But in this age where, I mean, you're going into the early signing period and the transfer portal opens up. So you got to recruit your own players. You got to go find other players too. Because there's going to be, I'm just throwing a number out there, there's going to be 8 to 10 guys leaving, maybe more, 8 to 10 guys coming in, maybe more than that. And the earlier that you have your bowl game done, the quicker you get a chance to focus on exactly that.
Yeah, I went to the one Vegas Bowl thing they had back when Houston was here, and I mean, it was a good trip. I liked it. I didn't see the players complaining. I mean, Vegas is an interesting place to go, so I wouldn't think that's a bad. The only one I would say is Liberty Bowl. Let's try to avoid that. It's always too cold there. But a trip to Florida and one of those Florida Bowls or Vegas or one of those places, I mean, that's all right. Music City's not a bad place to go. Nashville's okay. So any of those.
I just don't. I wonder if one matters over the other as far as the ability to get your fans to the game. I mean, you play in Tennessee, it's a lot easier to get there. I think Arkansas had a pretty good showing for the Outback Bowl last year. Vegas, you'll get some people in Vegas. The only problem with the Vegas game is that men's basketball is in Little Rock that night or that afternoon. So, I mean. Look, they're not gonna say no to a bid to the Vegas Bowl because of that, but it's just that is one thing, that's in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I just remember that trip. That was one of the best bowl trips I ever went on. We had a good time out there, and I assume the players did too, and there were fans everywhere. Vegas is a crazy place. We're out there walking around one night, and some guy trying to climb a light pole, and he gets about halfway up, and he's drunk, and he falls, and he hits these power wires, and it zaps him, and we're all just like, holy smokes, what's going on around here? But that whatever they call that strip, it's crazy down there during that time of year. We had a good time, other than watching the guy get zapped. But it was fun. I mean, I don't gamble myself, but some of the guys with me went into we were right there in the MGM Grand where they have their own casino, and there were comedians in there performing tonight. Houston,
a lot of good places to eat. I mean, everywhere you go, yeah.
I don't know, though, but something good about a random self-electrocution just sounds like a regular night in Las Vegas. I don't know.
That was a little weird, believe me.
Mike, but in a couple of weeks, we'll know. We'll definitely know in a couple of weeks. So, we'll look forward to it, and we'll look forward to talking with you next week about the Battle Line rivalry, Arkansas-Mizzou. Yeah. Thanks as always, man. Have a great day.
Just got to beat Dinky Wits this week. Just got to beat Dinky Wits.
Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.